Welcome to 6 Gun Guitars Luthier Lessons video series. On this one we're going to talk about doing a little bit of French polishing. This is going to be a several video series, so just kind of keep watching for the different ones that are coming out. What I'm going to be doing it on is I have an old guitar body that was, part of an original series. Made a few mistakes on it. It's been sitting around the shop for quite some time. I attempted to do kind of a double binding around the bottoms, around the top side. I really didn't like it very much. Same thing on the back. I did a little bit of a Duke stripe after I kind of ruined the front. I figured I could experiment on different parts of it and really have something where it really didn't matter if I messed it up or not. So I did a little experimentation. This is a Spanish cedar back on here and sides over a spruce top. But what I did was I got the back of the guitar and I knocked out a few of the dings and stuff like that that it had from just kind of floating around the shop. And I got it down to 220 and I scraped it. I actually did a lot of scraping on this with a card scraper. And I just ran over it with a little bit of 220 with the grain to kind of try to hide any imperfections that are on here. I don't need it to be flawless for this, but the better it is, obviously the better to show the technique. French polishing is a shellac application method, and I got some instructions on mixing the shellac and things like that, but your very first step is take the shellac, take a look at my video, it'll show you how to mix it. I made this is about a 2-pound cut right here of shellac, and the very first step is to lay down just a couple of really quick wash coats, and what those are going to do is those are going to just lay down a layer of shellac. And when we go back to fill the grain, because Spanish cedar is an open grain wood, when we go back and fill the grain with either pumice or fine sandpaper, we'll have a little bit of shellac that'll bind to that wood paste and it'll sink in. So the very first step to the French polish, prepare your surface. The surface has to be flawless if you want a really good French polish. It's going to be a very, very reflective, very high shine polish. You don't want to have any scratches hiding out underneath there because they'll be visible and it'll distract from the overall look. So I'm going to take you over to the bench right now. We're going to do the first phase of the finishing process, which is to take about a 2-pound cut of shellac and just put a couple easy coats on there. So I'll take you over now and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. The guitar's here, surface is prepared. Like I said, just did a little bit of sanding, just try to make it as even as I possibly can. I'm going to take my 2-pound cut of shellac. And for the wash coat, normally you use a rubber for French polish, but for the wash coat I'm not, just because I want to get a good amount of shellac on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dispense a little bit of shellac on my piece here, and I'm going to take just a regular piece of, this is an undershirt, and I'm going to go ahead and start rubbing this in. Now you can see the color change immediately. There's really nice color to it, not a lot of shine, but that'll come later. And I just want to get good coverage, and it's going to start to, you're going to smell the alcohol, and that's fine. You want to wear a little bit of a mask when you're doing this, and you want to go ahead and make sure you're in a spot that's open. We've got a door open on the other side here that's letting some fresh air in. And just kind of get through this, get all the shellac on there. And the nice thing about working with shellac is it's cut with denatured alcohol. And denatured alcohol dries very quickly. So usually by the time you get to the other side of the guitar, the original side is nice and dry, so you can do a quick second coat on there. So get all this rubbed on. You want to try to keep it kind of even. It's not going to matter as much because we're going to sand on this. And that's the whole point of this wash coat. The initial coat is just going to lay down a little bit of shellac, just enough so that when you mix and you start sanding with the pumice or you start sanding with sandpaper, when you start doing those things, what's going to happen is the alcohol that you're also sanding with, that you're also using the pumice with, is going to reanimate the shellac, put it back into suspension, and it's going to mix with those wood fibers, and it's going to work its way into the wood pores. That's what you really want. You're not actually filling it with the pumice itself. What you're filling it with is the sawdust, the wood dust that you've created through the sanding process. That's what's actually getting down into those holes and doing the filling. Pumice is white, so even though when it gets wet it's going to take the natural color of the wood, it's going to get close, it's going to darken up, you still don't want to have something that's going to change the color of the wood. Unless that's what you want, but I did one that I filled with pumice instead of filled with wood dust, and I just didn't like it. It really made it look too bright, too white, and just unnatural looking. Alright, so we got a good coat on there. I'm just going to hit my edges really quick, even though it doesn't really matter too much, but just going to hit my edges. Now we're completely covered, got a nice 2-pound coat on there. It's pretty much dry to the touch already. What you want to let this do before you start into the next process, and before we get into that, I'm going to let this dry about 2 hours. I want absolutely everything to off-gas out of this. I know it only takes probably 20-30 minutes for it to do it in real life, but I'm going to give it a good solid 2 hours because I want this all to gas off. I just want to be left with shellac and nothing but shellac. So when I reintroduce a little bit of alcohol, it'll reanimate that shellac, but there isn't going to be any existing alcohol, and the shellac itself isn't going to be soft. You need the shellac to be hard so that we're only picking up little bits of it and mixing it in with your wood dust and filling pores. But that's how it looks so far. That's just one coat of shellac. And what I'm going to do is, like I said, let this dry for a couple hours. and we'll come back and we'll do the second set of the videos here. If you have any questions about this particular part of the process and why we're doing it, just go ahead and shoot me an email at sixgunguitars@gmail.com, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have.